Hey everybody, Eric here with Legacy of the Gun. We are at the 2026 NRA Annual Meetings and Exhibits in Houston, Texas. I am accompanied by Mike Helms, notorious Smith & Wesson collector, aficionado, and expert, and we're at the Smith & Wesson booth. Smith & Wesson has asked him to bring out some of his personal collection to display at the Smith & Wesson booth, which should tell you a little bit about the level of collecting that he is in. He has some fantastic pieces in his collection, and he's going to share some of them here. There's two cases, so we're going to bump over to another case. You might have seen him in some of our other videos. He has Smith & Wesson serial number 5, which is the earliest Smith & Wesson in existence. Go check out that other video, and we also did a Buffalo Bill presented gun. That was an amazing gun and amazing display as well. And those guns are also here as well, but we won't highlight those since we already talked about those. So, Mike, what are some of the guns that you've got here? There's some really neat stuff with some neat history here, I think.
Yeah, this is kind of my 20th century cabinet. So we're going to start at the top here. I got a Smith & Wesson 38 military and police Victory revolver. Of course, the Victory was produced during World War II.
Yeah.
There was actually two variants of this made. One was in 38 Special that was used by the American forces, and there was also a variation produced in 38 Smith & Wesson that was used by the Commonwealth countries, so England, New Zealand, Australia, Canada, so on and so forth. This is a 38 Special variant. They were actually pretty crudely finished. They were finished with kind of a sandblasted Parkerized finish. Obviously, the priority was just getting guns out as quickly as possible, but still superbly made guns with a fantastic action and guns that you can actually take out and shoot. So they're a lot of fun to own.
I've always liked Victories.
Yeah, Victories are great. This on the bottom here, this is actually a little bit earlier. This is also a Smith & Wesson 38 M&P. This was actually from the second Navy contract in 1903. So there was two Navy contracts early on, and there was 1,000 guns in each contract. They were sent to the Bush Terminal, Bush Navy Terminal, which was in Brooklyn, New York.
Okay.
And these were experimentals for the U.S. Navy to try. And that is actually one of the original Navy guns that was sent, one of 1,000.
That's neat. Now, is it marked? I know U.S. guns are marked U.S. or USN. Does this have similar markings?
It does, actually. On the bottom of the grip, it's got the little anchor engraved in it. It's got the inspector marks, and it's got a separate arsenal number and serial number.
I like
so
that.
Yeah, it's kind of cool in that
really
way.
neat.
And I've got it here next to a Hamilton ship's chronometer, which is
gotta have that.
Those are always fun to see.
I like that.
The next gun down here, this is a 38-44 heavy duty. This is an early post-war gun, and it's actually shown with a pair of Smith & Wesson handcuffs. It's actually pre-war handcuffs, and it's an early post-war gun. What's cool about this 38-44 heavy duty, it was actually owned by the Dallas Constable, Roby Love. So he was the constable in the 1950s and well into the 1960s. So he was the elected constable of the city of Dallas. And Roby Love became a little bit infamous or notorious because he was actually one of the guys involved in the Jack Ruby investigation. Of course, Jack Ruby killed Lee Harvey Oswald, who, had assassinated JFK. So
that's neat.
Sort of an interesting kind of a, friend of a friend connection there. But that gun's probably seen a lot of interesting stuff. And
of course,
Roby Love was just kind of this bigger than life, he was kind of a cowboy character, and big gun belt with the guns.
That's
and
a beast of a gun. Those heavy duties are heavy duty.
Absolutely. Yeah, and cool little fact about those, they were actually called the Super Police in the early 30s. That was
really?
Yeah, that was their nickname. Then on the bottom here, I've got a Smith & Wesson Model 41, which is arguably one of the best 22 target pistols ever made. Development on this actually started before the war, but Smith & Wesson took a really long running leap on this, and it wasn't commercially released until 1958. This is actually a first-year example. Came with a 7 3/8 inch barrel, and just superb gun. And sadly, Smith & Wesson actually discontinued it this year, so they just stopped production. Yeah. So there's still a few out there, and if you call your local gun store, they might still be able to get you one. But production did officially end on these, but it had a good long run. It was in production for almost 70 years, which speaks to the quality engineering in that pistol.
Of course. And is this a weight that you have here with it?
Yeah, that's one of the Olympic counterweights. So you would attach that to the dust shield on the bottom of the frame, and that would help sort of stabilize it and help you manage the recoil.
And that's original weight in an original box.
Yep, an original gun. Yep.
Yeah. Absolutely remarkable. That's got to be one of my favorites. I think the weight, I don't know, for some reason, it's different. You don't see stuff like that very
it's
often.
really, really cool.
Yeah. I like that a lot.
Yeah. All right.
So, and we've got another case we can take a look at, right?
Absolutely.
Let's head over there real quick. All right, so there is another case, but I completely forgot. There's a backside to the case we were just looking at.
There's guns everywhere.
We did not want to skip this because there's really, especially one gun in here that really is truly remarkable. All right, so Mike, walk me through these. What's on the backside of this case?
Sure, so we'll start at the top again. So this is actually an original 38 military and police model of 1899. And I just want to emphasize, the M&P has been in continuous production since 1899. We now call it the Model 10.
Okay.
But the Model 10 is I mean, it is this gun. It's the modern evolution of this revolver here. So this is a model of 1899. The big difference with this one, it did not have the little lug under the barrel that the extractor wad would lock into.
Kind of like the heavy duty does.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah. But otherwise, this was. This really sort of set the pattern for the military and police revolver. The grips are still interchangeable, so it's the same grip frame on it. We've even got the original box there. And
that's neat.
Yeah, and that shipped in 1901 to a dealer in Colorado. So.
And I have to say that gun is in absolutely magnificent condition. I mean, the bluing on that is just...
It's perfect, yeah.
It's stunning.
We think it's one of the best, probably one of the best surviving model of 1899s in existence.
I absolutely believe it.
Yeah.
And then what's this?
Okay, so this is the Smith & Wesson 357 registered Magnum, probably the most iconic revolver that Smith & Wesson has ever produced in its history. So the Smith & Wesson 357 Magnum was developed in the 1930s, and there's kind of a neat story that goes with it, that one of the objectives was that they could produce a handgun where the bullet would go through an engine block. And keep in mind, this was during Prohibition, and you had people starting to hot rod their cars, and apparently that became a thing. And the FBI had a problem, literally catching these guys. Sure. And they needed a more powerful handgun. So Smith & Wesson developed the 357 Magnum. And what's really cool about the original registered Magnum revolvers is that they were completely bespoke. Really? So when you ordered a registered Magnum, you would say, I want a 5 3/4 inch barrel, I want a Call Gold bead front sight, I want a white outline target rear sight, adjusted to, let's say, 25 yards with 357 Magnum ammunition, 6 o'clock hold. I want Magna grips with a T-grip or without a T-grip, and blued or nickel. I mean, you picked everything.
That's really neat.
And some people would even pick the weight that the trigger would break.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And the guns were all custom built. They were completely bespoke, and each gun had a registration number on it. And what you would do was you got a little postcard with your registered Magnum, and you would send that postcard back to Smith & Wesson with your name and address on it, and Smith & Wesson would send you a hand calligraphed certificate that said, registered Magnum number 1234 is registered to, let's say, Eric Olson, and it had this barrel length and so on and so forth. And what happened was, after about 6,500 guns, it just became too expensive of a scheme to keep up, so they dropped the registration part. But this gun, and this is an actual registered Magnum, this was shipped to Von Legerke and Antoine, which was actually at this point a subsidiary of Abercrombie and Fitch.
Oh, neat.
This was back when they were an outfitter before teenagers shopped there. But yeah, this is an original registered Magnum, and we've actually shot it. It's an incredible revolver to shoot.
Imagine.
Yeah, it's got the long action. It's just silky smooth. Some really, really superb gun making in that gun. Next one down is a 2230.
It's hard to go on from that.
I know.
Not that these are any less, but it's just hard to move on.
Nobody wants to follow the registered Magnum. But this is a cool gun too. So this is a 2232 kit gun, and when you say kit gun, a lot of people think to themselves that, does this mean that you bought it as parts and you had to put it together? That's not what kit meant. What kit meant was that this would be something that a fisherman would carry in his kit. Okay. So it was meant to be a smaller, more compact revolver, maybe if you were out hunting, it could be a finishing gun or something like that. It was originally built on the I frame, which was the more compact frame, and then in the 1950s it became the J frame, which was still the compact revolver frame, but it was chambered in .22 long rifle, had an adjustable target sight on it, and again, a fantastic revolver, and Smith & Wesson still makes variants of that today. I'm going on memory, I think it's the Model 63.
It's interesting that they would put adjustable target sights on something that's kind of this small, especially given that it was meant to be, I don't want to use the worst term, throwaway gun, but a kit gun being, you throw it in your tackle box and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
With that in mind, I'm sure there's probably not quite as many surviving examples, since it was more of like I said, I don't want to use the words disposable gun, but it was marketed being a kit gun.
Yeah, they were tool guns. So.
Yeah, tool gun, that's better term.
And on the bottom here, this is actually one of my favorites. This is a Smith & Wesson Model 52. So Smith & Wesson developed the Model 39 in the 1950s, and that was the first American-made 9mm single-action, double-action pistol.
Okay.
And they developed the Model 52 based off of that. It was actually built for the Army Marksmanship Unit originally. And this was going to be their absolute top-of-the-line Halo gun competition pistol. So this is actually chambered in 38 special wad cutter.
Really?
So you have to run wad cutters in it. You can't run any other type of bullet in it.
So the chambering was just shorter just for wad cutters?
Exactly.
No kidding.
Yep. The magazine only held 5 rounds, but this was meant for competition fire. This was not a duty pistol. Had really large target sights on it, and just absolutely superbly made. These were handmade guns back in the day.
I like that. I have to say, after the wad cutter aspect is interesting.
Yeah.
Because you don't hear stuff like that.
No, you don't. And it was a gun that Smith & Wesson produced for a couple of decades. Eventually, they did phase it out. But I still hand load wad cutters for that, and
really?
I call it boringly accurate. It's so accurate at 25 or even 50 yards.
I like that one.
Yeah,
you put some of the more interesting ones arguably on the back side. Some of these I think should be on the front side of the display.
They probably should be, but it's like picking kids. I mean, it's picking favorites.
I guess that's true. Yeah. So this is just part of what he brought out. We are going to head over real quick to the other display case and check out some of the stuff we've got over there. So let's do that real quick.
Good.
All right, so we're over here at the second case, and again, just like the history that's in these cases is just unlike anything you see anywhere else. So, all right, Michael, walk me through these. What do we have here on the top? We've got a Model 2.
This is a Smith & Wesson Model 2. It's a gun I don't talk about a lot, but not because it isn't historic. So the Smith & Wesson Model 2 came out in 1861, and it was meant to be kind of the larger complement to the Smith & Wesson Model 1,
yes.
Which was chambered in 22, not a particularly potent cartridge. The Smith & Wesson Model 2 was chambered in 32 rimfire, so this was a bigger cartridge back in the day. This particular Model 2 dates to February of 1865.
Wow.
And there's 2 cool things about it. It was shipped, most of Smith & Wesson's guns were shipped through a New York distributor/wholesaler, but this gun was actually shipped to a dealer in Cincinnati, Ohio. His name was Benjamin Kittredge. And he actually stamped the side of the barrel there. You can see that little sort of half-moon stamp.
Okay.
And Kittredge actually did a lot of business going right down the Mississippi River. His main operation was in Cincinnati, but he also had an office in New Orleans. So when we see Kittredge marked guns, that probably went somewhere interesting.
Yeah, I feel like I've heard the name.
Yeah. So this was a Kittredge shipped gun, and the other cool thing about it is it was actually awarded to a soldier who had participated in a shooting match that we think was held in Vicksburg, Mississippi. It
Really?
says the Western District of Mississippi. It's actually engraved on the back side of the gun.
Really?
And unfortunately, they didn't put the name of the soldier on it, so we don't actually know who won it. But it's got some kind of beguiling and interesting history behind it. Yeah, behind that
it's got a story.
Yeah,
more than just the gun.
It definitely has a story. We think the shooting competition was right after the Civil War, so technically, I don't think the gun saw action. I think it was, a presentation gun or an award gun.
That would make sense given the condition. I mean, the grips. The grips still have high sheen, which you don't see often. That's one of the first things to go.
Yeah, and the frame on those was actually silver plated. It was plated in sterling silver.
Really?
And the silver doesn't last. Silver's a very soft metal, so usually when we see these, they're very worn down. But that one's in superb condition. In the next cabinet down, there's a lot to talk about here.
I can see that.
So we've got 2 panel scene engraved Model 1s. These were probably both engraved in New York City. These are really, really fantastic engraving motifs. One of them has this snake and anchor and arrow motif in it, which I think is
that gun before. I remember that now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just a fantastic revolver. The other one has a little hunting scene on it, so it's got a guy and he's holding his guns and he's aiming at a bird, and there's actually a little rabbit looking up at him. So it's really, really cool. The other neat thing in this case is we've got these thermoplastic presentation cases in them.
Those are plastic?
They're plastic, yeah.
Really?
A lot of people think they're tin.
I thought they were.
And some people call them gutta percha. Gutta percha was a soft rubbery substance that was used for some things in that era, but these were actually a thermoplastic, so they were shellac and sawdust.
Really?
That was mixed together, and then it was poured and cast in a mold, and and these presentation cases were made. So they hold, I think it's 57 rounds of ammunition and the gun and a little cleaning rod in the bottom. So
now, are they fairly brittle?
they're very brittle.
Yeah.
So
I've never seen those.
All it takes is one tumble off a table and they will
gone.
shatter into a million pieces. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so they're very fragile. Not many of them
And
have
they're beautiful.
survived. But they're gorgeous.
Ornate and
yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah, and they've even got, this one has the little Smith Wesson gun in the top of it. So it's very, very cool. In the next cabinet down here, we have a 44 double action. So this gun could be fired in single or double action. We think it was chambered in 44 Russian, but what's really unique about this is it's a smooth bore.
Yeah, that is unique.
Yeah, it's got no rifling in it, and that was typically used by
Competition shooters.
Competitive shooters or exhibition shooters. That was the word I was looking
Your
for.
Annie Oakley types.
Yep, it was on the tip of my tongue.
We both got it.
And I've got one of the glass ball targets here. Of course, these are extraordinarily rare because those glass ball targets would get thrown up in the air, and if the bullet or if the shot didn't destroy it, gravity would. So
yeah, exactly.
Very, very few of those have survived, but that's an original 19th century glass ball target. And then we've actually got the factory production book here. Yeah, that shows that gun was actually made on December the 2nd, 1886. That's when the frame was completed. We know that there was 20 guns made that day, and that was one of them.
Remarkable. I love that.
Absolutely remarkable.
Love that.
On the bottom shelf here, I've got two more guns. This is a new Model 3. So this was the apex of Smith & Wesson's single action large frame gun making. This was the evolution of it. And of course, what's really cool about this, it has target sights and it's copper plated.
I was going to ask, I've never seen a finish like that.
Yeah, so there's only been 2 guns in Smith & Wesson history that have left the factory as copper plated guns, and this is one of them.
Really?
And we're not able to document it to Walter Winans, but we strongly suspect that this was probably special ordered by Walter Winans, who was kind of the Jerry Miculek of the late 19th century.
Really?
Yeah, he was an extraordinary shooter. He competed all over the world, and Winans had this really neat theory that you have different guns that you use for competition, and each one should have a different finish.
Okay. Hey, I'm going to start adopting. Well, it's Tuesday.
yeah.
I got to have my Tuesday carried gun.
Exactly.
Colored gun.
Yeah. And it should absolutely be a different color than Monday's gun. So that was his theory. So like I say, this is only one of 2 documented guns that left the factory copper plated. On the left here, I've got a 38 new departure. A lot of people call this the safety hammerless, and there's also a sort of colloquial term, the lemon squeezer.
Yes.
But this was the apex of Smith & Wesson's smaller top break gun making.
Sure.
And it had that backstrap grip safety on it. So Smith & Wesson was thinking about safety even back then, and the idea was unless you were an adult and you were gripping the grip properly, you actually just couldn't pull the trigger at all.
Yeah.
So it was obviously a double action only lock work inside of it. But it's a really nice example. This one actually dates, it's a later gun. It dates to 1917.
Okay.
But it also has factory ivory grips on it.
Oh, are they factories?
They're factory ivories.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
They're beautiful. And I actually like the way that they kind of sit inset with the lemon squeezer aspect on the back. I like the way that looks, like that little hump.
Yeah.
So now that you've got one in the back here, on the back side too, we're not going to go around to the other side. What is that?
I do. Okay, that's a Smith & Wesson Baby Russian. Okay. So Smith & Wesson was making a full frame version that was called the Russian in the 1870s. It looked a lot like these 2 guns here, a little bit different. And their very first 38 caliber center fire revolver looked a lot like the Russian. So really quickly it earned the name Baby Russian.
That makes sense.
It was a little bit smaller frame revolver. That particular one dates to 1876. And I think what's really cool about this one is it actually shipped to a dealer in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, but it was bought by a guy from Vermont.
Okay.
So I think what had happened was this guy was living in northern Vermont, and Montreal was probably the closest, biggest city to him at that point. So I think he and his wife probably went to Montreal one day, and maybe he saw this and it just caught his eye or whatever. But so he bought a gun in Canada and brought it back with him.
I love it.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah, but we've got the original box, the original bore brush, and the original little wrench that came with it.
You have truly taken Smith & Wesson collecting to a different level.
We are trying.
And then, of course, as I mentioned earlier, we've got a Smith & Wesson that was presented by Buffalo Bill Cody, and then we've got Smith & Wesson serial number 5, which is not only the earliest Smith & Wesson, but it is the earliest known, let me get this right, metallic cartridge revolver in existence.
Yes,
and
sir.
that's phenomenal. I mean, that's huge. And so we've done individual videos on both of those. Go find those. I'll actually link at least one, maybe both of those at the end of this video, so check those out. Thank you so much. I have to say, these two cabinets have probably more historically significant, rare, unique, individual guns that we love, right? These are the older style. You know, we do a lot of neat videos on newer guns, but I have to say, these are some of the most historic, best guns put together in one mini. This is just part of your collection, I know, that you've brought out here at the NRA show. And this is the kind of stuff that you do see not only in our videos, but here at the NRA show and some of the other shows that we visit around the country. We want to thank you guys for watching. If this is what you like, if this is what you're into, watch our other videos. Head out to legacyofthegun.com. We're on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, all the good socials, and we'll see you guys in our next video.
Thanks for watching.